How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Infinite Sports. I'm your host, Kenneth Gruenfelder, to recap last night's Game 4 of the Eastern Conference Finals between the New York Knicks and the Indiana Pacers. The Knicks took Game 3 to get themselves back in the series, and they were trailing 2-1 going into last night. And many Knicks fans, including myself, were hoping that they were going to tie the series and send it back to Madison Square Garden to set up a crucial Game 5. And that did not happen, unfortunately. And, you could point back to really Game 1 because the Knicks should have won that game. They had that game in the bag, and then Aaron Nesmith decided to just not miss a three, right? He hits 6 threes in the fourth quarter, 5 straight threes. And then, of course, you had the Tyrese Halliburton shot that at the moment you thought it was the game winner, but it ended up being a two-pointer that sent it to overtime. The Knicks still had the opportunity to win the game, and they did not do that. And then Game 2, the Knicks were kind of trailing most of that game. They ended up losing that in a close ball game there. And then Game 3, they're trailing. They're down 20, and like they've done in the playoffs, on the road, they overcome adversity. They overcome a 20-point deficit, and they come back and they win on the back of Karl-Anthony Towns. So you were really hoping that last night somebody on the Knicks, whether it was Karl-Anthony Towns, whether it was Mikal Bridges, whether it was going to be Jalen Brunson, that was going to step up, take over the game, and lead lead the Knicks to victory. And that didn't happen. It just did not happen. And pretty much what we've seen throughout this whole series, the Knicks being slow to get back in transition. I mean, how many times do you see some of these guys on the Pacers just wide open and the Knicks miss an assignment? I mean, there were a couple times. You saw Tyrese Halliburton, who had a very good game last night and didn't turn the ball over once last night. Early on in the game was wide open, nobody around him. It was like a shoot-around. He took his time to take his three-point shot, and he makes it. And then how about towards the end of the game? The game was kind of over at this point, but, there was still like a little bit of hope that maybe the Knicks could come back. And it was, of course, Obi Toppin being wide open and nailing the three and sticking a stake in the hearts of all the Knicks fans towards the end of the game there. But yeah, it was just it was a back and forth for first quarter, right? Both teams really were not playing defense. It was a very high scoring first quarter. You would have thought this was like going to be the score midway through the second quarter, because the final score, the score after the first quarter was 43-35 Pacers. I mean, there was just no defense. And then things kind of slowed down a little bit. The Knicks outscored the Pacers 29-26. But it's just the Knicks were playing catch up the whole time. They got to within 6 a few times down the stretch, but it's just they couldn't keep it going. And the Pacers would hit a shot that just would increase the deficit even more. And again, nobody really stepped up for the Knicks. Jalen Brunson only had 2 points in the fourth quarter. I think he only had 3 shot attempts. Karl-Anthony Towns, he finished, I think, with 24 points on the night. And he got banged up in this game. He's been dealing with that knee issue, and then he collided with, I believe it was Nesmith, and he was on the ground for a little while. And he gutted through the rest of the game. So we'll keep an eye on what his status is going forward in this series for this Game 5 coming up tomorrow. But, that's not good. And if he's out for Game 5, then, the Knicks really have no chance in this game tomorrow. But nobody really shot the basketball great. OG Anunoby, he finished with 22 points, but he was 7 of 16 from the field, 1 of 7 from 3. And the 1 3 he made, the shot clock was about to expire, and it was a tough shot. He was able to hit it, but he had a rough shooting night. Karl-Anthony Towns went 8 of 15 from the field. He had 12 rebounds, 24 points, like I said. Mikal Bridges was 6 of 15 from the field. He was 4 of 5 from 3, actually. And Jalen Brunson, he finished with 31 points. He was 11 of 12 from the free throw line. He went 9 of 19 from the field. But and nobody really just took over this game. And some of the shot selections in this game, Cat shooting a three, that it's why are you rushing? Like try to set up, the possession and take a better shot. You don't have to rush, but that happened. And then Mikal Bridges had a shot early on in the game, a 2-pointer that it hit off the rim and it was just off the side of the rim, and you're just sitting there going, what kind of shot is that? And then there was another possession later in the game where he took a shot from one part of the one corner, missed it. Knicks got the offensive rebound, passed it out to Bridges, and he shot it from the other corner, and he missed that shot. And also, OG Anunoby, there were plenty of times where he was under the rim for a dunk, for a layup, and he just took his time, and, the shot would get blocked or he would miss it. Yeah, it just was not a great shooting night all around. And turnovers continue a problem. So I added up all the turnovers in the game in these 4 games for the Knicks. They've had 58 turnovers. I didn't go through the entire playoffs because we're just focusing on this series, but 58 turnovers in total in this series. And the Pacers, points off of turnovers, 86 points through these 4 games. And I compared it to the Knicks, their points off of turnovers, 33. And then fast break points. The Pacers, 65 to the Knicks, 23. The Pacers are just a better team. And they have so many different guys that can beat you. And even off the bench, like they have a deeper bench. And last night, off the bench, you had Benedict Mathurin. He finished with 20 points, 5 of 8 from the field, went 10 of 11 from the free throw line. He came up big for them. Miles Turner was in a bit of foul trouble. He ended up fouling out late in the game. But 4 out of the 5 starters, they finished in the double digits. Andrew Nembhard went 1 of 9 from the field. He was not great. He was their only starter that really didn't produce last night. But Tyrese Halliburton had a triple-double. Was pretty much had a triple-double at the half. But like I said, finished with no turnovers, 32 points, 12 rebounds, 15 assists. Miles Turner had 13 points. Nesmith had 16. That ankle was fine. He hit a 3 like immediately to start the game, almost immediately. So that, the ankle was fine. And Pascal Siakam finished with 30 points. It's just the Pacers are a better team. And going into this game, or going into the series rather, you felt confident because, hey, the Knicks defeated the defending champs. They've been playing well on the road. They're healthy coming into this series. You figured that, hey, this is going to be different from last year. Well, it is going to be different. Instead of being knocked out in 7 games, probably going to get knocked out in either 5 or 6. And, listening to some of the reactions to the game, some people are bringing up last year and how, it would be different had they have Hartenstein and DiVincenzo. But look, this is the team that they have. And you were hoping going into this year that the moves that they made, acquiring Karl Anthony Towns, acquiring Mikal Bridges, a full season with OG Anunoby, that this was going to make a difference. And look, they got to the Eastern Conference Finals. It's just they ran into the same team that knocked them out last year. And with the Pacers, they have pretty much the same team. Like all year, we were talking about how the Knicks are still trying to gel. Because with all these different pieces that they have now, the Pacers have the same team. So that also plays a role in it too, to an extent. But it's just the pace of play. Like the Knicks at times they kept up with the Pacers and they would slow the game down a little bit on certain possessions. But the Pacers there's always somebody back there. And they always look for that mismatch on those pick and rolls. And that's why you see Tyrese Halliburton shooting a wide open 3 when nobody's around him, because the Knicks didn't pick him up. And we talked about this with Ben. They didn't shoot the three ball well in game 3, and that made the difference. One of the biggest reasons why the Pacers lost, I would say, game 3. They weren't going to shoot poorly from 3 yesterday because they ended up finishing from the 3-point range yesterday. They finished, I mean, still not great, 13 of 32, but definitely better than what was it, 5 of 25 the other day in game 3. So, yeah, they shot 40%. Knicks shot 42 or around 43% from 3. Both teams around 84% from the free throw line. Pacers were 51% from the field. Knicks were 46%. Knicks actually out-rebounded them. But, yeah, it's just... And look, the Knicks tried. You still ran out Shamet. You still ran out DeLon Wright. And he hit a big 3 in this game. In the first half. They were giving you, I thought, again, good minutes. They were playing good defense at times. Precious Achiuwa saw a little bit of action. Well, really only for 2 minutes. But it's just, once again, the Knicks were just trailing the whole game. Could not get into a rhythm. And down the stretch, anytime, when they were getting to within 6, and you thought, okay, is this another one of those late comebacks? The Pacers would make a shot that would deny them of it. Siakam hit a big shot down the stretch. And like I said, Obi Toppin, the former Knick, hit a big 3 that basically iced the game. Really put it away. It wasn't meant to be for the Knicks to make it to the finals. And look, there's still another game that is going to be played. The series is not over yet. But like I said to start this podcast here, game 1 basically was a multi-game loss for them. Game 1, losing that game set the tone for this entire series. Because you don't lose a game like that. And I hate to bring up the Yankees, but I relate it back to game 1 of the World Series. Because when the Yankees lost that game, you sat there going, they're not going to win the series. That felt like a gut punch. Now, you could say that the collapse that the Knicks had was worse than that. I know we had that little discussion on which was worse. But not only that, though, for the Knicks, they lost game 2. They lost both home games. Are they really going to go 0-3 in this series at home? You hope not. I mean, I can't go into the mind of these players and, are they dejected? I mean, they could say, hey, this series isn't over, and it's not. But it's definitely waning to an extent. You would have to imagine. But yeah, game 1 really set the tone for this series. And had the Knicks held on and won that game, it's a whole different series. The whole complexion of the series is different. You're going back to MSG, and it's tied at 2 games apiece, and it's anybody's series. And yeah, it was great to see them come back and win game 3. But it was going to be tough to win back-to-back games in Indiana. And on top of that, up until game 3, the Knicks had not won a playoff game in that building. 0-9 coming into this series, which I was not aware of until this was made apparent when TNT made this known. I'm sure, of course, people knew this going in. I wasn't aware of that. But yeah, I mean, they dropped the games from last year. You also had, back in the 2012-2013 playoffs when they lost to the Pacers, and I think also when the building first opened up as well. But yeah, it was going to be tough. And someone needed to step up. But nobody did. Nobody did. Nobody took this game over. And another thing is, Bridges was taking all these shots down the stretch. It was like, why is the offense running through him? And look, Mikal Bridges has had some signature moments in these playoffs. Go back to the Boston series. But Karl Anthony Towns propelled the Knicks to Game 3 victory. Where was Jalen Brunson in this fourth quarter? It just, it was unfortunate, and you want to see this run continue and, get to the finals, see this Knicks team in the finals, but it's just not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And I had this series going 7 games. Based off of last year, what the Pacers can do, the Pacers are a good team. I look, you figure like, hey, the Knicks beat the Celtics, they could beat anybody, absolutely, but Pacers are still a good team. They knocked off the 1-seeded Cavs. This team was in the conference finals last year. This was not going to be a cakewalk. And it's just the Knicks let games slip away and take control and not take control of some of these games, and this is where we are. This is where we're at. Turnovers have just been a huge issue. I think that's one of the top issues. I mean, some of these possessions are just like, what are they doing on some of these passes that they're making? I mean, just being careless with the basketball. Josh Hart, I think, had 5 turnovers yesterday, and he played 35 minutes. And also the officiating. The officiating was not great. The Knicks, on one of the possessions late in the fourth quarter, there were 4 fouls. 4. One of them, I mean, it was incidental contact. Reggie Miller said it on the broadcast too. And I know Knicks fans, talk about him being biased and obviously loving this because, of course, playing for the Pacers during his career. But it was incidental contact. They're both falling to the ground, and Josh Hart just happens to land on Mathurin. And they call that a foul. And then, there were some calls the other way, where the Pacers should have been charged with fouls against the Knicks, and they weren't called. But you also can't blame the officiating. You just can't do that. There are so many things that you could look at in these games and point to them rather than the officiating. That's a cop-out, just blaming the officials. But that's not to say that there were some calls that you questioned. It's just, look, the Pacers, the Knicks can't keep up with their pace, no pun intended, and the Knicks just turn the ball over too much. And the defense, it's just, that's what you could point to. And the inconsistencies of these players. And people continue to talk about Tom Thibodeau and his job. Look, he still deserves to be the coach of this team. This coach got this team to a conference finals for the first time in 25 years. And you're telling me that this guy deserves to be fired? Now, you could be upset with him. I get it. There's Knicks fans more passionate about this. I'm not going to... Look, I don't feel strongly... I feel... No, actually, I shouldn't say that. I think he deserves to stay. I think maybe you could have had more of a conversation had the Knicks, choked in the series against the Celtics. But the guy got them to a conference finals. I would be shocked if he ends up being let go after this. And, you got fans calling in to all the sports shows saying, he's one of the main reasons. He's responsible for the culture change with the Knicks. How this team was, 5 or 6 years ago. How this team was looking, the starting lineups that they were trotting out there, the head coaches that they've gone through. Kurt Rambis and Jeff Hornacek and Fizdale. All these different coaches that they went through. And then they finally bring in Tom Thibodeau, a proven head coach. I mean, Fizdale was a proven head coach too. Back when he was with Memphis. But, they bring in Tom Thibodeau. He changes the culture. And Julius Randle was a part of that. And, they traded him, of course, to get Karl Anthony Towns. But, then you add all these players. You add Brunson, and you trade for Josh Hart. You know, Tom Thibodeau was at the forefront of all this. And of course, with the front office, with Leon Rose and what they've been able to do. So Tom Thibodeau should not be let go after this. He shouldn't. What the Knicks have to do is look, you got to reload, particularly when it comes to the bench. Got to get better role players. You got to get guys that can come off the bench and play good minutes, productive minutes, that can give you points. Because that's what the Pacers have. That's what the Celtics have. You know, like the Knicks need that. Now, Deuce McBride, he's played well in the playoffs. Didn't have a great game last night. But he's a guy that can come off the bench. But you got to add more to that. And look, Mitchell Robinson, he's been productive for them in these playoffs, particularly when it comes to getting rebounds, you know, playing good defense at times. But he gets gassed. You know, they got him playing in the starting lineup. I mean, you know, he's getting gassed from the pace of play. He's a big dude. He can't, you know, these guys are moving up and down the court so fast, you know. It's just, he is a good player for them, though. Offensively, you'd like to see him do a little bit more, but that's just not part of his game. But yeah, it's a problem. And look, there are some stars out there that the Knicks could maybe trade for, but I mean, are they going to do that, though? They traded all those first-round picks to get Mikal Bridges because they felt like this was going to be the missing piece or one of the missing pieces. And then you got Karl Anthony Towns. And Mikal Bridges was disappointing. He's had his moments, but I think we can all agree we thought he was going to be a better player. And he just hasn't lived up. Again, he's had big moments in these playoffs, but again, yesterday, you know, inconsistent with his shot making, and then, you know, towards the end of the game, he finally gets it going, but it's too little too late. So yeah, it's unfortunate. That's really all you can look at it, you know. And look, this team won 50 plus games. They got to a conference finals. It was a great year. It's not over yet. But, you know, it's unknown what's going to happen next year. Because, you know, it's hard to get back to this point. It's not a guarantee. This could be their best chance. So, you know, we'll see. It's not over, again, not over yet. But I said it. They go down 2-0. Series is over. And that's exactly what happened. Then they win game 3. You have a little bit of hope. But it's like, well, you gotta win in Indiana again. And they were fortunate to win game 3, being down 20 again. And Cat taking over. They couldn't do it. They couldn't do it. And give the Pacers credit. So they're on the doorsteps of making it to the finals. And, you know, Charles Barkley mentioned it on the broadcast after the game. And listening to Mike Francesa's podcast, I think he brought it up too. The Knicks have too much pride. They're not going to go down without a fight in Game 5. They're going to at least do the best they can to try to push this game back to Indiana. Could they do that? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, going 0-3 at Madison Square Garden in this series, that's tough. And then if you do that, who knows? But I don't know. It'll be very telling early on how this series is going to end off. Because if the Knicks come out with just no energy, the Pacers are just going to roll all over them in Game 5. And that game's going to get out of hand very quickly. You know, give the fans in MSG If this is the last game of the year, give them one more thing to be happy about. And then if you lose going back on the road, hey, at least you went down swinging. And but the worst part is these games were winnable. All of them were. I mean, the Pacers have had stretches here and there in these games, even last night, where they had a tough time making shots. And the Knicks just could not take advantage. They couldn't. Because they were struggling to shoot the basketball themselves and turning the ball over. These games were winnable. Not like the Pacers were blowing them out. It's frustrating. It's a frustrating series. But we'll have to see what the Knicks bring tomorrow night in Game 5 to try to hold off at least one more game. Because right now, the way things are looking, not just with this series, but with the Western Conference Finals as well, it looks like we're going to see Thunder Pacers. That's what it looks like. And I know some people are looking at that and saying that's going to be terrible. I think it'll still be pretty good. Because, again, you're disrespecting the Pacers. I know the Thunder are really good. But I think this Pacers team can give them a little bit of a tough time. I would probably still take the Thunder in that series. I think you're going to take the Thunder over whoever they end up playing. If the Knicks come back and win, you'll still take the Thunder. But I think the Pacers can give them a tough time just because they have a deep team. Not as deep as the Thunder, but you got a lot of guys that can play minutes. So yeah, both series are 3-1. Now the Timberwolves lost a close game the other day. Julius Randle did not have a good game for the Timberwolves. I was watching a little bit of that. Randle didn't have a good game. Anthony Edwards didn't really have a great performance. Every time the Timberwolves were similar to the Knicks, but the Timberwolves were at least a little bit were more so closer to coming back, and they could have had a chance to come back and win. But the Thunder would make big shots down the stretch as well. So, yeah, we'll see. But, so that series is tonight. Game 5 of that series is tonight. That's back in OKC. So, we'll see what happens. But we'll be back tomorrow either tomorrow or Friday we'll recap we'll either preview or recap with Ben this game. Ben had an not a previous obligation, but an obligation with work, so he wasn't able to join me today. So I figured I'd get this out for you guys and get my personal thoughts. And I actually did get a new camera today. I literally after we recorded the Knicks recap, and I did record the Yankees recap with the other video camera. I ordered a new camera because having the glitches during the podcasts, at least when you're watching them on YouTube, it was annoying. So yeah, I ordered it and I was able to get it yesterday. So I ordered it and I was like, I'll pay the few extra dollars to get it here on the same night and use it today. So I'm using it right now. So yeah, hopefully no more glitches with the camera. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll be working on the Yankee recap video from last night as well as they continue their West Coast trip. Also, we'll be previewing the Yankees-Dodgers series that's coming up this weekend, the World Series rematch. So we'll talk about that. Excited for that series this weekend. 3 games out in L.A. Back to the scene of the crime. Really back to the scene of the crime in the regular season when it comes to Judge running into the wall, because now he's going to be playing out in right field again, because obviously last year he was playing center in the World Series. So we will get into that like I said, look out for the recap of the Angels game from last night, Yankees Angels game from last night. Make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Make sure to follow us on TikTok, and also wherever you get your podcasts, you can listen to us on the go as well. Just look up Infinite Sports. I do have the link for the Spotify account in the description here on YouTube. And yeah, so we'll see if the Knicks can hold off elimination tomorrow. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Gruenfelder, signing off. Have a good one, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Take care.